to to review the education system, it took between 15 to 20 years of clear planning, and that is why it is successful. But in Kenya, in 2017, the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development actually developed a framework for, then it was called CBC, now it is as CBE. And today it is 9 years since the current grade 10 were in grade 9. Now, you want to tell me that the government is not aware that for the next 9 years, these children would be in grade 10. And that is why I still call out the incompetence of the Ministry of Education. Look at these facts, Dennis and Nduh. As we speak now, teachers who are trained in the former system, the 844, they went through the so-called retooling and so on and so forth. But if you look at the studies across Kenya from different counties like Makueni, Kisumu, and so on, the teachers have demonstrated and actually said that they are ill prepared for the CBE. You cannot take a teacher through a crash course of 3 weeks, then you think they are competent enough. That also said, CBE has introduced new subjects that none of the universities in Kenya have ever trained, teachers. For instance, there is marine technology, aviation, and so on, and so forth, and there is no one, and yet students are already in grade 10. Now, look at this. The TSC has acted in what I would call ultra-vires way, that is in excess of their power, by actually shifting the policy of, in the past, every teacher was trained in 2 subjects, for instance, English and literature, and they were fully competent in that. But now TSC is saying this rule is going to be changed because there are insufficient teachers, so you end up having someone who is not properly trained actually guiding children on aviation, and this is somebody who has not even been to Wilson Airport. They don't even know how the cockpit looks like, really. This is contrary to Sustainable Development Goal 4, which Kenya is a signatory, which calls for inclusive quality education for all. Why are we leaving Kenyan children behind? So I would say that without proper funding, without proper resourcing, we are offering poor education to our children, and that is why the private schools are thriving. When I was growing up, Dennis, in the 90s, those of my peers who went to private schools, we thought that they were not well endowed intellectually. It was that public school was a thing, public hospitals was a thing. But now look here now, nobody wants to take their children to public schools, and actually even in private schools, families that suffer financial constraints have to really sacrifice the best of their life to take their children to private schools. So it is high time the Ministry of Education should stand up and deliver quality education for every child in this country, and we are not begging them. This is a right of every child that is granted by the Constitution, not even by the President.
So do you blame students? If you, just looking at a snapshot of different reports that have come from schools, a lot of the students are in the grade 10 class across board. It was even highlighted by the CS. So, do you blame them? The things that you've talked about have a direct impact. They're not living in a vacuum.
Yep.
They know. They're not in some world. They are aware of these things that you're talking about. Would that contribute to then what we're seeing in schools when they say, well, you know what? Come on. We can see that the quality of food is below par. We can understand that capitation hasn't come, so our parents are being, asked to pay more money, or that we can see that we are treated funny. We also know that there are teachers who speak to students and ask them they live their problems vicariously through these students. Do you blame them?
Now, let me answer that in this way. A learner of today is growing up with AI, for instance. A learner of today is computer proficient, and the learner of today is very much aware of their rights, and that is actually what Article 53 of the Constitution provides for, the rights of the child. So teachers need to change their perceptions. Teachers were trained to see our children as students. A student is supposed to sit in class, receive instructions, and be tested. But both the Basic Education Act and the Basic Education Act regulations does not use the word a student in basic education. They are referred to as learners. People who have to learn, who have to develop knowledge and so on. So they are very much aware of what their rights are. And then when they move to schools, into boarding schools in particular, and the teachers stifle their voice, they cannot speak out, contrary to the right of a child to participation. They are subjected to inhuman treatment. Recently, I had some misguided members of parliament talking about reintroduction of corporal punishment. I wish you could bring them here with me. We talk about this thing. You cannot reintroduce corporal punishment when children are simply asking for what their rights are. And if you see this caliber of MPs, that is why half of them missed on the budget day, because they don't know what they should be doing, you see. And that is where we have a policy gap. We have people who really do not want to make things right. So back to your question, yes, it is true. The learners of today are very much knowledgeable. They know what their rights are. They are conscious. They see the daily struggles of their parents as they pay fees. And therefore, they have every right to say when things are not wrong. But this does not justify the burning down of schools and destruction of property. Just as I conclude, I was in high school some years back. Actually, when I saw the deputy governor of Machakos. I studied in Kangundo in Machakos in the 90s. And during my time, actually in our school, we went not on strike, but it was a go-slow. And I was the one who
was leading the pack.
I wasn't leading. I was given the chance to read out the grievances. Okay. And it was so peaceful. Not even a single stone was thrown. We didn't even destroy a single classroom. Until then, the principal had to leave, and we got a new principal. So this is the way to go. This is the way to strike. A go slow, non-violence. This is what I would encourage every child to do. Do not have to burn school. You don't have to destroy property. You have to raise the concerns, the issues that are there. And I call on the school administrators to listen to our learners. You must give them a voice. Gone are the days when children were supposed to be seen and not heard.
Dr. When you look at how we're managing our education sector, one asks the question, do we have individuals who understand or have the wherewithal to handle our education as a system, as a sector that is very critical to the development and growth of the country that is Kenya? Why do I ask that? Because the cabinet secretary admitted, I do not know how much a child requires from ECDE all the way to tertiary, whether it's university, whether it's TVET, he has no idea. So when it comes to budgeting, say, if I am today the cabinet secretary and for the 5 years that I'm serving, I do not know what it means for a child who's starting from ECDE to the time when my 5-year tenure would be ending. That, as well as you look at, you are overseeing a subsector where you need teachers. If you do not know how to budget, that means you equally do not know how many teachers you need for you to offer quality education. We talk about infrastructure. If you do not know how much a child needs to go to all the way from ECDE to tertiary, there is no way you would be able to know the kind of infrastructure that is needed for all these children to be accommodated in a dignified way for them to be able to deliver. Now, one question there is if we do not have individuals who know what it is they need to do, why are we pussyfooting in letting people go and employing people who will deliver? Or is this again just another political card that we'll give to any Tom, Dick and Harry because we have the appointing power?
I agree totally with you, Dennis, in this regard. If I take you back to the history of Kenya. Under President Daniel Arap Moi, we had the dream team that was led by Dr. Richard Leakey, people like Dr. Martin Nduh and so on. These were technocrats, people who knew what they were supposed to do, and they were able really to address, those challenges, the funding challenges and mismanagement and so on that that Kenya had. And also during the time of the late former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and the late President Kibaki, we had people like Professor Nyong'o, who is the current governor of Kisumu, and then he was the Minister for National Planning. That is when we had Vision 2030 that was developed by that time, and that therefore means that the government should be able even to outsource experts out of political class, people with skills, people with knowledge, people with expertise that can run education. Because when we look at human development, there are actually three key things that have to be taken into account, and two of these, of course, is education and health. Any country that does not invest in education and any country that underfunds education will produce a very weak, incompetent human capital.
You need to say that again. Any country that doesn't invest in its education will do what? Will
produce, incompetent, demotivated, unskilled human capital that will end up bringing back Kenya 60 years back behind. And we have to say, no, this cannot continue like this, and we have to say no. And that is why I still continue to insist. I have no personal problem with the education officials, but when we have a CS who doesn't know how much it costs to educate a child, when we have a CS who doesn't know the unit cost of education per child, we only know the capitation rate for school, then there is a problem, then there is incompetence. When we have a ministry where the Auditor General revealed that 1.1 billion, and the President confirmed that, was being stolen every year for capitation, where we had ghost learners, where we had ghost schools, how could this happen when in every country there is county director of education, zonal director of education? What does this show? It shows two things. Either there is incompetence, the people don't know what they are doing, and that is why they need experts like me in that ministry. Two, it could be corruption. That is sanctioned. In my culture, in Kisumu, we have a saying, we have a lot of fish there. One of these fish is called Nduh. Ngege is tilapia.
Okay.
And we learn that it rots from the head. In Luo, we say that that's a new terminology for you.
I've written it down.
It begins to rot from the head before it reaches the tail. So we have to ask ourselves, where is the head of this fish that is rotting?
On top of
Yeah, and we know it. We will refry that fish so that we have a good country for every child. We cannot keep on, living like this.
This is true. And then what must happen later? Let's take a break. Real quick one. See what's happening on the roads now. That traffic was terrible earlier on. Davis Combo is here with us, and we're going to come back and say, okay, fine. This is where we are. It's bad. What are we going to do to then be able to sort it out? Second coming after the midterm is where we are now, and we're going to deliver another Form 4 to exams by the end of November. What happens? And the ones who are in grade 10 right now are going to be in grade 11 come January. Oi, I'm already tired. We'll be back in a minute. It's 9:45.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Traffic.
Traffic update brought to you by Chloride Oxide.
Yeah, there it is. It's still a very busy morning. Uhuru Highway coming off Mombasa Road is extremely busy still. As you're going to cross over that junction coming in from Bunyala and then get on to Haile Selassie, extremely busy. Raila Odinga Way still has some traffic. That traffic that was happening right around Naivasha Road connecting with Kingara Road and then getting on to James Gishuru, still a little bit busy, but I think we're getting through, or we've gotten through the worst of it. Traffic crossing over from James Gishuru through towards the Red Hill Link Road is not too bad, and then you're fine on Waiyaki Way. But traffic on the Thika Superhighway, uncharacteristically still pretty heavy at this point as it takes you towards the Pangani Underpass. The Globe Cinema roundabout busy going towards Kirinyaga Road on your left and then on towards Moya Avenue. All right, so we're still seeing heavy traffic this morning in certain parts. And then coming off of Jogo Road leading towards Landis is spilling over from Enterprise Road at this point. My goodness, it's that day. We know schools are open, but sheesh. Let's talk and keep things moving. SpiceFM KE on X.
Traffic update was brought to you by Chloride Oxide. Wherever the road takes you these days, stay powered by Chloride Oxide. Get total peace of mind on the highway with the premium Oxide battery range backed by a rock-solid 18-month manufacturer's warranty. Chloride Oxide. Inside from Chloride Oxide.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
At 13 minutes to 10 o'clock, we continue our conversation this morning with Dr. Davis Combo. And we're saying, okay, rubber meets the road now. And Davis, you're saying that you know the situation is bad. You can't continue to pet this thing and hope that it'll stop. You have to deal with it, cut it out and deal with it. That action needs to be taken now, because as we keep dealing with maybe this grade 10 that we're talking about today, they become grade 11 next year, and that the assumption is that they've gone through this preliminary year of this senior secondary school and that they have all the screws tightened. But the truth of the matter is that they do not, that they went through the whole first term without books. They got into the second term, and so maybe now starting to struggle. Gafla Binvu, it's November. We finished the first year of senior secondary. Okay, maybe stumbling. I just said it. Stumbling through the thing. But then we say, Elimu Bora or Bora Elimu, right? Yeah. And then we go to grade 11. Are we even ready for that? Somebody now suddenly is solidly in a pathway. By the time they get to grade 12, they're done. How do you ensure that somebody actually went through the thing, had everything that they needed? We already know that capitation is a whole mess. We know that even the way they're treated is a problem. Teachers are not happy. For goodness sake, today is the 30th of June. No TSC leader. Everything is up in the air. How do you truly say that you have an education system when everything seems to be bursting at the seams?
Thank you. Thank you very much. First and foremost, I think it's high time that the government can really be committed to its legal and constitutional obligations. As I said before, and I reiterate now, education is not a privilege. It is a constitutional right of every child in this country that should be granted. Secondly, in order for us to at least salvage what we can now, number one, the TSC impasse needs to be resolved. And I think the High Court, although it is independent and we really respect that, should make decisions while looking at the national interest and the rights of the children. The rights of the children provides for what we call the best interest of the child. Before you issue those conservatory orders and so on, we have to think of that child in Laikipia, that child in Marsabit, and how that action would really affect them. So as a matter of urgency, Kenya needs a substantive a CEO of TSC. We don't have time to wait further. We need somebody who is going to be in charge of recruitment and management of teachers. We cannot keep waiting for this, no matter what it costs. I would wish that at the end of today, Tuesday, the commission makes a statement. If they don't, we are going to ask them tomorrow again. We need a statement on the fate of the TSC secretary, because we need teachers, we need retooling of teachers, we need management of teachers. How are we going to do that when we don't have this person? Number two, if we can consolidate all the education allocations we have from the CDF, you wonder what the hell members of parliament have to run education. They're supposed to legislate and oversight. What the hell are they doing, issuing out bursaries and so on? Bring back that money to Ministry of Education. The president has allocation for education. What the hell is he doing with that money in State House? Bring it back to the Education Ministry. The governors who are even here before me, and you could see what they said, let them bring back that money to Education Ministry so that we can bridge this capitation deficit. And once we have bridged it, as a matter of priority, improve the infrastructure in our schools. Our children need to sleep in better dormitories. A school is not supposed to be a prison. We need our children to be in a safe environment. We need laboratories. We need libraries in our schools. We need books in our schools. We need proper student welfare in our schools. And there is money for that. We have to ask the ministry, where do you take this money? Or if Treasury is not allocating, why is it not doing so? This is not a privilege. Again, there have been some things that happen in Kenya education which we are not really happy about. You know about the DCI, Under Inspector General of Police, and they keep threatening children. We will put you in police, certificate, good conduct. We will say you are rude, violent. That is silly. There is no provision in law for good conduct certificate. This is an administrative action by the police, which is illegal. I call on the MPs to specify under which circumstances can the police record those, criminal staff and keep them for how long. We don't just want them to act administratively as if we are in Uganda. No, this is Kenya. We fought for. We shed our blood for human rights and so on. We have to respect these rights. And lastly, I would call for research. People, we have to get into the root causes of all this. We've had a lot of commissions. We are tired of these presidential commissions. We already have them. The ministry has them. Why can't they implement them? And researchers in the universities can further, add into the knowledge that is already existing so that we have quality education for all children in Kenya. But as I said, this is the time to deliver education for every child in Kenya. It is now, not tomorrow.
Daktari, you said something earlier that the fish rots from the top, right?
Yes.
From the head.
Yeah.
From the head, right? Now, let's say the fish here we talk about is the government. And the reason why I bring that analogy or perspective is because if you look at even the origin of budgets that would then inform even how allocation that would go to education, it emanates from the ministerial level, where ministerial level, that is cabinet is the president, right? Yeah. And then with that, then you look at the appointing authority of the people who will be overseeing the education sector. That again is president, who appoints the cabinet secretary, who will then oversee the day-to-day running of these of the education sector. Talk about PSs. Yeah. But all we've seen over time is that we had Machogu, when the cabinet was dissolved, we brought in what's his name? Ogamba yeah. Migos, right? We brought in Ogamba Migos. When he had a problem with the PSs, what has happened? We just switched them, took one problem from one ministry to the other. How we really address the root cause of the problem? But you look at education as is today, there is a feeling my humble opinion, that education has been politicized. It is why the MP has CDF, and in that CDF there are bursaries that will go to their electorates. Why? Because that is a political tool. There's a reason why the president has an education fund. Why? Because again, it is a political tool. There's a reason why the president perhaps is finding it difficult to hire educationists, professionals to run these institutions. Why? Because that is a political tool that he will use to give it to those that helped him perhaps become president. If then we say that the fish rots from the head, are we saying that the problem starts from the highest office in the land, because it is not looking at education as an wholesome development subject that should be looked at critically?
Dennis, I close ranks with you in this regard. And as I said, in my culture, the fish begins to rot at the head. And we know the highest authority in this country, even if I don't mention it, we know it. But look at the former presidents we had. President Moi did a lot in promoting education. Actually, we used to call him Mwalimu Namba Moja. He ensured there was more university, JKUAT, and so on and so forth. Then, of course, we had President Kibaki, who introduced free primary education, which worked very well, and many children now could go to school. We had President Uhuru Kenyatta, who actually increased capitation. Then came our president Ruto now, who in his presidency, the capitation has been reduced, and it has been reducing every now and then. So back to your question, I would say without fear of contradiction that our president is a beneficiary of education. You know, he always calls himself Mr. Hustler. From Eldoret to Nairobi University, now to State House. If President Moi did not make efforts in promoting education in Kenya, perhaps our president would not have gone to the PhD level. And because he's a beneficiary of education in Kenya, I would call on His Excellency, the president, to take the lead. We need him to, promote political will. There is no need of retaining a cabinet secretary and officials that people have raised concerns about, retaining them for, political reasons and so on. It's high time that we did what President Kibaki did with people like Honorable Kiraitu. They did what was called the radical surgery in the judiciary, and that is why judiciary now has some sense, even if sometimes they misbehave. We need similar radical surgery in the Ministry of Education, so that all the corrupt officials, who have these ghost schools and ghost learners and so on, should pack and go. We need political will in this discussion, and I challenge His Excellency the President to take the lead. If indeed his vision for Kenya to reach Singapore is anything to go by, then he must take the lead in promoting education of children in Kenya.
And that's the way to say it, that you can't deal with the thing with kiddie gloves when you have a problem. Must be sorted out. We can't end this conversation without saying that we do wish our learners, as they go back into the second half of this second term, the very best, and that hope against hope that things will get better, but it won't by us just wishing. There must be action. Dr. Davis Kombos, educationist, has joined us in this conversation this morning, leading the charge on things that must be done. It's not a question of can we, they must. Asante sana. And for everybody who was part of the conversation in the Situation Room this Tuesday, the end of June, for the last conversation of the month of June, thank you for being here. We'll do it again next month.
True.
Have a good morning. It's 10 a.m.
Next year.
Next
for
month.
Kenya.
Okay. Iyo.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is Danyaza. I'm Sheila Tembur. Clinical officers in Siaya County have called off their 21-day strike after reaching a return-to-work agreement with the county government, clearing the way for services to resume in public hospitals. The deal follows talks between the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers and the county leadership led by County Secretary Elizabeth Adongo, with implementation of the new CBA set to begin next month. Okoh Deputy Secretary General Austin Odwar said the agreement addresses long-standing financial and administrative grievances, including payment of risk allowances starting in July and arrears dating back to June last year. The county has also agreed to implement career progression guidelines, process pending promotions, and set up a committee to oversee the CBA implementation. Okoh has urged members to resume duty while committing to monitor compliance, particularly on July salary payments. All ambulance owners and operators in the country have been directed to register their ambulances with the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Council by 17th July or face regulatory action. In a notice, KMPDC said registration must be done through the Emergency Medical Services portal and applies to all ambulances offering emergency care. The council says the move is aimed at improving the quality of pre-hospital services, strengthening emergency care under the Social Health Authority Fund, and ensuring compliance with health regulations. KMPDC has warned that failure to comply will attract penalties under the law and urge operators to complete the process within the deadline. Police in Narok County have recovered 2 illegal firearms and several rounds of ammunition under the ongoing voluntary disarmament exercise. According to police at Angata Barikoi in Transmara South Sub-County, the weapons were voluntarily surrendered on Sunday evening following a directive from Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen. The operation involved police officers, local administrators, intelligence officers, and peace communities. Among the recovered weapons were an AK-47 rifle without a serial number with 2 rounds of ammunition and a G3A3 rifle with 5 rounds of ammunition from separate villages in the area. Security officials says the recoveries are part of ongoing efforts to mop up illegal arms and have urged residents still in possession of firearms to surrender them before the amnesty period ends. Tomatoes agriculture input manufacturers have partnered with distributors and traders in Trans Nzoia County to ease the cost burden of farmers and improve access to agricultural inputs amid rising living costs. The agreements cover products such as pesticides, seeds, animal feed aimed at boosting agricultural and livestock production. PEV's Vetagro Company Business Production Manager Haron Tingasa, the initiative will ensure farmers access inputs on time, increase farm incomes, and reduce production challenges.
Wanabiashara wetu ambao tunawasupplyia products, wengi wao kuna changamoto sana kujikimu wakati uchumi uko chini. Tumeweza kuwa na mkataba ambaye itasaidia wanabiashara kuchukua loan kutoka kwao, alafu hao wanatulipa, wanabiashara wanaenda kuuza bidhaa zao. Saa hizi stockist wanaweza chukua bidhaa kutoka PEVs ili walipe baadaye, lakini avenues watatulipa sisi kama distributors, alafu watadai baadaye stockist. Changamoto sana kwa wanabiashara inakuanga kwenda kudai deni, lakini hawa wamekuja katikati kutusaidia. Huo ushirikiano iendelee kabisa.
He also called on the government to lower petrol and diesel prices, saying high fuel costs are increasing production expenses for farmers.
Ile imeathiri biashara ni upande wa mafuta, kwa sababu hiyo ndio imefanya bei ya mali na dawa inaenda juu. Mafuta ikienda juu, pia sisi kama wanabiashara tunaumia kidogo, kwa sababu we are passing that cost kwa mwanabiashara ule wa chini na pia kwa mkulima. So hiyo ndio inaathiri biashara kwa sasa.
And that's the news. I'm Sheila Tembur.
More of the classics and the hits you love.